Right2Know Day, also known as Universal Access to Information Day. The day aims to increase public awareness of people's fundamental human rights to information and to pressure governments to make this right a reality. The organization Right2Know is marking the day with various peaceful pickets across the country to highlight COVID-19 corruption. It's also hosting a webinar under the theme, It's Our Right to Know About Accountability for Corruption. For more, we are now joined by Right2Know Deputy National Coordinator Ghalib Galant. Ghalib, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Good morning, Blaine.
Access to
Thanks
information.
for having me.
It's a great pleasure to have you. It's an important topic to discuss, Ghalib. Access to information. We know about the number of stories that have come to the fore of late, and one of them is this report that the President of South Africa relied when disciplining the Minister of Defense, calling it an error of judgment with regards to that trip to Zimbabwe and carrying or giving the ANC delegation a lift there. Some are calling for access to the reports that he relied on. I guess it talks to some of the issues that you want to discuss. What are some of the barriers, do you think, there is currently in South Africa in particular with regards to access to information?
Thanks, Blaine. I mean, the issue around COVID-19 and the context of COVID-19 has put the issue around access to information even more firmly in the spotlight. You remember that over the past several months, the National Command Council has been relatively good about giving out information, although there have been demands for certain information that the Command Council hasn't been as forthright with. And this trip to Zimbabwe is one of them. And so we do see that there are some barriers and some obstacles to full transparency still in place. One of the obstacles, I guess, is citizens' access to information relies on maybe an outdated legislative framework in the promotion of access to information legislation, which is about 20 years old. And it also doesn't take into account, for example, a state of disaster as we have at the moment.
Right. So what tweaks needs to be made to that legislation in order for it to work optimally?
So one of the things we've been advocating for in the last couple of years has been the principle of proactive disclosure. Right. So we really want a culture not of secrecy, but rather of openness and transparency. That's what the right to access to information in the Constitution puts in place or attempts to put in place. And so something like proactive disclosure would go a long way to rebuilding the trust that I think has been lost because of a culture of secrecy that we've had under the previous regime.
Information empowers our understanding of the world. In context of COVID-19, that disease is not the only disease that spreads. There's another disease called misinformation. How worried are you about the correct information getting out there and the, with us talking about fake news and disinformation and its influence on society? How concerned are you?
We are very concerned, and I guess the issue also is that so much of the information now lives on social media platforms and in the ether, and so things like fact checking are much harder to do before people publish. Also, the number of publishers has grown exponentially. Anybody can now publish information, and so it really is quite easy for the wrong information, and misinformation is not just the wrong information, it's wrong information dressed up as if it were right information, to go viral before it can be checked. And part of the problem with that is that the damage is already done, even though there may be a retraction afterwards. And so that aspect does concern us quite greatly. You will know that in terms of COVID-19, there have been penalties for spreading misinformation about COVID-19 and measures to deal with it. But of course, exactly how we grapple with the spread of misinformation, I think still needs a much bigger national debate. Criminalizing it and criminalizing speech per se is very problematic. And I'm not sure that the antidote to misinformation is censorship.
Yeah.
It does need to be regulated and managed much better.
Ghalib, thank you very much indeed for your time, and I guess it's an important topic to discuss. Just before I let you go, how are you observing this day today in terms of Right to Know?
So we're having a webinar at 2 o'clock this afternoon, where we'd look at the issue of accountability in the context of corruption. Access to information is the first step. Transparency and openness gives us information. But the next piece really has to be that we have to have the whole architecture in place to make sure that there is some kind of accountability also for missteps and missteps.
All right, let's leave it there. That's the Right to Know Deputy National Coordinator, Ghalib Galant. Thank you very much indeed, sir. Be well.
Thank you very much.
All right, one of our other top stories, the Protea Magistrate